On March 31, 1952, Judge J. Fraser Harrison found Alan Matheson Turing guilty of gross indecency under Section 11 of the 1885 Criminal Law Amendment Act. Turing pleaded guilty to the charges against him. As a result, he was forced to choose between injections of estrogen, a female hormone, or prison. Turing decided against the prison sentence and chose chemical castration, or in other words, a medical way to kill your sex drive. An inquest will be held today on Dr. Alan Matheson Turing, reader in mathematics at Manchester University since 1948, who was found dead in bed at his home in Allington Road, Wilmslow, on Tuesday morning. He was 41. This tragedy marked the passing of perhaps the most brilliant mathematician and unsung hero of all time. In the 1940s, an English mathematician, Alan Turing, ushered in the information age, transforming computer science and paving the way for artificial intelligence. Turing's innovations in programming marked a turning point in computer science. His legacy lives on in our phones, games, and computers today. So what was it about Turing that made people consider him brilliant, that his passing would mark such a pivotal turn in history? His name was somewhat obscure, but you use his innovations every day. Turing affected the modern-day technological world when he introduced the new application of computability that ultimately changed how we utilize information today. Turing's innovations in computer science, philosophy, and math were transformational because he proposed a prototype for the modern computer, he laid the foundations of artificial intelligence, and he authored a groundbreaking paper of biological processes. During the first half of the 20th century, there was a growing interest in the foundations of mathematics. Mathematicians and philosophers like Bertrand Russell, Alfred North Whitehead, and Frege developed answers that pointed to logic as the foundation for mathematics. Although these various attempts all contained flaws that puzzled the authors. Kurt Gödel, an Austrian mathematician, figured out what was so puzzling. He discovered that systems of mathematics were either complete and inconsistent or incomplete and consistent. That is, if you could derive all the propositions from within a system, they will not all be truth-preserving. At this time, Turing was a young student. He studied and eventually lectured on this topic. Taking up the challenge, the result was the Turing machine. A Turing machine is a mathematical concept showing that a few simple rules can be used to solve any computable computation. Section 6 of Turing's landmark paper, The Universal Computing Machine, began.
It is possible to invent a single machine which can be used to compute any computable sequence.
24-year-old mathematician Alan Turing invented a theoretical machine that would change history in a comparably significant manner. He named it the Turing machine. The Turing machine is an application or formalizations of the concepts of algorithms. An algorithm is a step-by-step procedure for calculation. Overall, the Turing machine, as a formalizations of algorithms, is the basis for all of today's computers. Turing anticipated what computers do today in his 1950 landmark paper where he asked the vital question, can machines think? Turing proposed instead the imitation game, where he was essentially saying,
I can't answer this question, so instead of trying to define terms and answer that question, I'm going to see if we can mimic human behavior through a machine.
Thus, this idea of artificial intelligence went hand in hand and anticipated today's modern communication boom, with things like email, text messaging, and online chatting. Turing imagined a thinking machine. He used the word thinking and intelligence as the same thing. His goal was never to become a rocket scientist or brilliant phenomenon, but really equating thinking with intelligence. Perhaps one of the most famous predictions of artificial intelligence is Turing's idea of the path that will be taken in the next 50 years' time.
The original question, can machines think, I believe to be too meaningless to deserve discussion. Nevertheless, I believe that at the end of the century, the use of words and general educated opinion will have altered so much that one will be able to speak of machines thinking without expecting to be contradicted.
Clearly, today's computers function in a seemingly intelligent way. We even use the language of intelligence to refer to these devices as smartphones, smart TVs, and interactive computer games. Not only are people referring to machines as smart and intelligent, but they're getting frustrated when machines don't act smart and intelligent. We've become so anthropomorphic about our computers that we get frustrated and yell at them. So, in a strong sense, Alan Turing was absolutely right. In 1939, at the start of the Second World War, the German Nazis had created a cipher machine to encrypt their secret messages. This machine had a very complex procedure where German submarines were being guided to their target by encrypted radio instructions. These messages were coded and transmitted with a highly sophisticated device. This nearly impossible to break code was called the Enigma. The English government committed a group of mathematicians and cryptographers to crack this code. Alan Turing, then aged 27, was asked to join the team. He accepted the challenge and astonishingly was able to solve the Enigma code within the first few weeks of his arrival. Turing's contributions to the codebreakers was quite simply vital to the war effort. Today, historians believe that the work of the codebreakers shortened the war by 2 years, and by doing so, saved countless lives. Without the cracking of the Enigma, D-Day would have to have been delayed by a whole year, and in that year, southern England would have been battered by Germany's V-weapons. That would have delayed D-Day by another year. So the Second World War was shortened by 2 years because of Turing's cracking of the Enigma machine. From the year 1948 until the time of his death, Alan Turing began to work in a new field of research, biology. Turing was then elected to a Fellowship of the Royal Society, referring to his 1936 work. Turing's new ambition was something that had first absorbed him in youth, giving a mathematical explanation for morphogenetic phenomena. The way plants and animals grow is what they call morphogenesis. Turing questioned how it was possible for a formless blob to turn into an embryo with various shapes and organs and so on. Finally, in 1952, Turing published his paper, The Chemical Basis of Morphogenesis. In this paper, Turing suggested
everything from the spots and stripes on animals to the arrangement of pine cones and flowers could be explained by the interaction between two chemicals.
This idea was groundbreaking as it proposed for the first time that biological patterning arose as a self-organized emergent phenomenon. Clearly, Turing was an innovative thinker in the field of biology. Turing was in the midst of his vital work in biology when he was arrested for being a homosexual and put on trial for what was at the time illegal behavior. He fought his hardest to prevent his legal problems from halting his work. Opposed to jail, Turing accepted a treatment of female hormones, which at the time was believed to somehow cure homosexuality. Due to the side effects of the castration, Turing fell into deep depression. His work in biology was all cut off by his untimely death. His final melancholy words in a letter to his friend demonstrate his depression, despite all he had accomplished at such a young age.
Turing believes that machines think. Turing lies with men. Therefore, machines do not think. Yours in distress, Alan.
As recent as September 10, 2009, Prime Minister Gordon Brown issued an apology on behalf of the English government having to do with Turing, apologizing for the appalling way he was treated.